Greetings. Working on the Philco 610B. I mentioned I never did any videos on this, so I thought I'd go over what I did and where I left off and talk about a few minor problems. These Bakelite blocks down here are all restuffed. These dog bones are fake dog bones that I made out of molds of epoxy paste over modern resistors, and they came out kind of lousy, I think. That's probably the best looking one. I don't know, I have some more up here, but I think I'm going to leave them or change them for modern ones. These were a pain to make, and I don't know if I'm going to do any more. I left off on this radio and left this hanging, and this was over a year ago. Here, and I'm sure I took pictures before for the routing of the wires, but I can't find them on my computer because I got so many darn pictures. And I'm not sure how the wiring was, so we're going to have to figure it out. So that's going to be fun. It shouldn't be too difficult, but following a schematic and that. The other problem is I'm missing the screw that mounted it to the chassis right there, and I'm gonna have to go to the hardware store and look for one. I searched all my bags and all my parts. I can't find it. Who knows? I probably laid it on my desk when I was working on this and forgot about it, and then put this away and didn't go back to it. Now the reason why I think I may have stopped, inside this capacitor, which is number 4989, which you can actually get those numbers off the internet, and I don't remember where, but if you look at the Philco data, you can look, I think it's either on Chuck Schwartz's Philco site or the other one. There's two Philco sites, Ramirez's website. There's two good sites for these. And they will tell you what's in these blocks by number. Of course, this block isn't there. I penciled in it at the bottom. And I got the information from my Philco information that I got from Chuck Schwartz. Anyhow, there is a 0.09 and a 0.01 microfarad in that block, and I will show them to you on the schematic. The schematic is slightly wrong in that they show a 0.1 here, and it's really a 0.09. And that is here. The other one that's inside of there is a 0.01. So these two capacitors are in that block, and they are wired to this 1000 ohm resistor here on one end, and then they go into this IF coil. This is an IF coil, this whole unit with these capacitors inside it. This resistor is floating in the breeze here. Sorry for my focusing. Is not my autofocus. I have no control over. This thing drives me crazy. You try to move it in and out and try to get, there it goes. The brown resistor here is that 1000. That I believe was connected to this wire, which goes into the IF can. Those two go together. This one is nothing more than a ground. That goes to the ground of that pin. No, it's actually a pin. I'm going to have to figure out what pin that is. That's not a ground. I was thinking it was a ground. That's a pin on that tube. I'll have to trace that. And then this has a cool little flexible cloth resistor on there too. Anyway, so we're going to trace those out. And I'm still working on that. I'm not going to yet comment on where they go yet because I'm still figuring it out, but I will. I do have a part diagram which shows this Bakelite block, which is the one in question, with here's a little flexible resistor, and the only thing that it shows for wiring is the middle tab went to that 1000 ohm resistor, the brown one that I just showed you, and it has this one, and none of the rest of the wiring is shown, so it's all by schematic. So that's just a case in point, a little lesson on why you should always take good pictures and keep track of them on your computer. I know I have them probably somewhere. I've looked through, I have so many folders full of pictures on my computer, and it's been over a year, and I didn't label it like Philco 610B, which I should have, and I cannot find any pictures of this radio on my computer, although they're there somewhere. So that's where I'm at. I just thought I'd do a little update. I'm going to figure out this wiring. When I figure it out, maybe I'll add more to this video. Get this Bakelite block in. Then we have two more to do. This one and this one. And restuff this paper one. And this one up here. So there's 3 blocks and a paper to do. And, oh, the tone control. I don't think I did the tone control yet here, which has capacitors in it. I started in the bottom and worked my way up, and I don't think I did the tone control. I'll have to check that. So that's why you should always, you know, you think, oh, I'll remember how this goes, and you just leave it and walk away and go do something else. And you know, I have backing up. The resistors that go in there I mentioned were a 0.09 and a 0.01. This is a 0.09. I don't have a 0.01. And I have a feeling I stopped working on it because I couldn't find the 0.01. I think I ordered the wrong ones because I have too many 0.015s and no 0.01. But you know what? I don't think that's going to make a big difference in the circuit. It's only a 0.005 bigger than the one that it calls for, which is a 0.01. And, you know, dealing with capacitors that old and a radio this old, I don't think they need to be that close in tolerance. And it probably isn't going to make a huge difference. Oh, Chloe likes the 0.09. My cat. Okay. I thought I'd give you a quick update there on why it's important to take good pictures and good notes on what you're working on, in case you don't get back to it for a long time, which I didn't. This is Tom. My usual disclaimer to my videos. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm a hobbyist. I'm a registered nurse. I do not work in electronics, and I've learned what I've learned from watching other videos and reading books. So that's why I don't like to make a lot of comments on how you should or shouldn't do things. It's simply this is the way I'm doing it, and sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes I'm sure I say things that are wrong, and don't mind being corrected. I figured out this a little bit better, and I thought I'd comment on that because I'm trying to figure out this wiring. This is the 78 tube base. This is pin 5 of the 78 tube. This wire is coming off pin 5 of the 78 tube, and you can see it's hanging in free space, as is the other side of this little flexible resistor. This was screwed up into there. So this was connected to the end of that resistor. Okay, so keep that in mind. Pin 5 78 tube, little resistor. This is a 400 ohm flexible resistor. We come over here to our schematic. 400 ohm, that's our resistor in question. This is the 78 tube, and I've marked the pins. That is pin 5. So we follow pin 5 down. It goes to one end of our flexible resistor. If we follow the other end of the resistor down, crosses here. This is not an electrical connection because there's no dot. For those that don't, I do know a little bit about reading schematics that I've learned. If there's no dot there, these cross, but they're not connected. Continuing down, crosses, no connection to ground. So the end of the flexible resistor is ground, and the other end is pin 5. So that helps things out a lot, because if we come back here, now I know that, and of course we're not going to focus. Now I know that this end of this flexible resistor goes to pin 5, and the other end of this is going to be our ground wire, which will be important because anything I want ground now, I'm going to connect through the middle of this terminal on the 2 capacitors that I'm stuffing in here. That's our ground terminal, because that's going to go to ground ultimately through the resistor. Oh yeah, there we go. There's a wire connected there. Now I didn't even catch that. Let's trace it. This wire back here is going around. Okay, and that's going to pin 4. Just confirming that. Sorry for the camera, poor camera angles and poor focus. That's the wire that's on the other end of the resistor. It's going to pin 4, which I hope is ground. If it's not, then maybe I'm out and out. Oh, there we go. Look, ground. Pin 4 is ground. So there we go. There, we've figured that out. It's just, I'm just taking you through the steps on how I figure out where things go with the schematic. I am no expert at it, but maybe it'll help somebody else. I've learned this from watching other people's videos. So that is ground on there, pin 4. That goes to here, which goes to the end of our 400 ohm resistor, which goes to this pin, which will also connect to pin 5 of our 78 tube. So we figured out that much. That's where we're at. And we'll figure out the rest of the capacitors here, and I'll get back to you as soon as my dog starts barking. Stops barking. She thinks somebody's at the door, and I don't think there is. Thanks for watching. We're going to continue on with identifying where these wires go. Now I know the end of this. This is a 1000 ohm resistor, this brown one. The end of that went to the Bakelite block. The other end of this, which you probably cannot see very well from any angle, it goes up and terminates here. This is a tie point, merely being used as a tie point for other parts of the radio with the point-to-point soldering. This end of this wire here, this white one, goes all the way down, and that ends on the electrolytic. That ties to that 1000 ohm resistor. This resistor ties to it. And what is this resistor? So let's look at the schematic. Up here we have the 1000 ohm resistor. That's the brown one, and that goes in, the other end of that goes to the IF can. It comes down, okay, it goes over, and this is a tie point, and it goes to the electrolytic, which we just followed it to, the white wire. We come back and go up. Here we have a 0.1 meg resistor, which is resistor number 44. Now let's look at the part list. I don't know how well we're going to focus, but we'll try. That's a 44, take my word for it. Resistor 0.1 meg, white, white, yellow. White, white, yellow. How you read these resistors, and I'll show you how I learned this. The body is white, the end is white, and the dot is actually orange, although that says yellow. But I'm sure that's the right resistor because, looking at our part list, maybe they changed it. They may have changed it, or they may have an error. Philco had a number of errors in their part lists. They're not always accurate. Number 48 is the one in question. That is the correct one we are looking at. The one next to it is number 44. Here's an interesting thing. Speaking, now it may have been a change, it may have been a mistake. Number 48, as I said, is a 0.1 meg white, white, yellow. Number 44, which according to that, the schematic, is also a 0.1. You have a 0.1, number 48, 0.1 meg, number 44, 0.1 meg. Let's go to our part list. Resistor, number 44, 0.1 meg. Look at this. Brown, brown, green, black, green. Brown, black, green. Okay. Number 48. Resistor, 0.1 meg, white, white, yellow. Part number 6099. 0.1 meg, brown, black, green, part number 6099. 099. Same part number, different colors. That's an error. Let's come up here to the actual parts in question. It's missing. I wonder, oh boy. I wonder if I cut it out. I did. Again, and I'm doing this live so you can learn something. This is why you don't like work on something and then not work on it for a year. See that cut pin? And see that cut pin? There was a resistor between here and here. That was another 0.1 meg. Because it's on the schematic and it's right here on the part diagram. I must have cut it out to replace it when I was working on this and never got back to it. I mean, obviously I can tell it was cut out too. Wow. And again, this does not jive with the part list. We have a white, white, orange, not white, white, yellow. And then my missing resistor. This is on Nostalgia Air. Body is the first number. End color is the second number. The dot is the middle number. First number being white is a 9. Second number being white is a 9. The third number being orange would be 3 zeros. Or, of course, it's saying yellow, which would be 4 zeros. Which would be 99,000 ohms. Which is, yeah. Interesting. Okay. This resistor was bent down along the side so you couldn't see it. I've pulled it up. These are both the same. So you have the two white, white, orange. These are the 0.1 megs resistors in that circuit that we were looking at just a minute ago. There they are. So following that, we know the other end of that goes to the capacitor in here, which is the point in question that we are trying to locate how to rewire. Let's look on here again. Trying to hold the camera. Sorry, I don't want to drop it. Here's our capacitors, the 0.01 and the 0.009. So the 0.01 goes over to that brown capacitor. The other end of it comes through our little wire and goes over to pin 5. The other end of the other one goes to ground, which we've determined the other end of the 400 ohm resistor is also ground. So these are actually, the ends of these are like tied together to ground. And this one here goes across from the end of the flexible one and over to the end of the brown resistor, which we've just shown, which is hanging in free space because that's going to solder to the end of that. And then tied into that is that other extra wire which goes to the IF can, which is this wire here. This wire goes to, it goes up and under. There's an IF can under here, way up under here, and it goes around and under there. So those go together on the end of that one resistor. This goes to the other end of the other resistor, and then we have our ground. So I think we have it fairly well traced out now. So we'll start to get those put in and come back. Alright, I got the caps in. I'm getting ready to solder them and solder them for my British friends. And put them up into here, which actually that makes sense. It's the word sold, S-O-L-D, which is how you pronounce sold in America, and you add ER, solder. Most Americans say solder. Okay, moving on. This, of course, is our Bakelite block in question. I have put our two capacitors inside. We have a 0.09 and a 0.01, okay, as we've discussed. Bringing the leads through, here's what we've got. One end of the two capacitors comes through to here, and they're together, and that is going to go to this wire, which is pin number 5 of the 78 tube. So they both come together. Here's one of them. This is the 0.09. This is the 0.01. It goes to the end of our little flexible resistor, and it goes to pin 5 of the 78 tube. The other end of the 0.09 is to ground, which we've already determined is sharing a ground with the 400 ohm resistor, and that goes to pin 4 of the 78 tube, which is ground. The other end of the 0.01 goes to a wire into the IF can and to the other end of our 1000 ohm resistor. This is the other end of the 0.01 coming out here. That is going to connect to this wire, which goes into the bottom of that IF can, as I've already told you, and it's stuck underneath. Stuck underneath, but it's going to go to our 400 ohm resistor. These two going together, the 400 ohm resistor and the wire into the can there. And then the other end, as I said, is of the other capacitor goes to ground, and this is our ground here, which is the other end of the 400 ohm resistor, which goes to pin 4 of the 78 tube, as I just showed you on the schematic. So that's how we're wiring it up. We're going to solder this up and screw it in. I borrowed a screw. These two still have to be done, so I took the screws out because I wanted to look underneath and see where these wires are going. And I'm going to screw this down with one of those screws and take another one up to my hardware store and try to find a replacement for the missing screw. I'll come back when this is all buttoned up. Time will tell when I do the final power-up if I got this right. Let's hope I did. I've reviewed and reviewed and reviewed my connections to try to confirm in every possible way that I didn't make a mistake, but I still second-guess myself constantly. So our Bakelite block is screwed in tightly. We have the two capacitors, the 0.09 and the 0.01, coming together, joining with the end of the 400 ohm resistor, which wire is going to pin 5 of the 78 tube. We have the middle wire, which is the end of the 0.01, and that's going to the 1000 ohm resistor and to the IF can. And the other end of the 0.09 is going to this pin, which is going to the other end of the 400 ohm resistor, which goes to pin 4 of the 78 tube, which is our ground. And I'm not going to review it all in the schematic again because I've done it 3 times and you're probably getting tired of watching it, if you're watching this at all. So there we have it. Hopefully I didn't mess up. I just wanted to do this long thing on this, on how I go about finding something on a schematic, figuring out the wiring without any reference photos because I didn't have any. I'm going to move on to these two and this paper one. I'm going to take pictures of this before I do it, take them apart, and also use this schematic. I check everything against the schematic anyway. And then we move on to this one and the tone control. When those are done, I think we'll almost be ready for the power up on this, hopefully. Thanks for watching. This is Tom.